Link to this article will be in the description, so you'll get a chance to read it for yourself. The European Union Times. European Union Times online newspaper says the following. Here it is. The big news article. We've been saying it's coming. We've been telling people over and over. And it's finally here. New Obama law warned will jail 500,000 Americans. Foreign minister reports circulating the Kremlin today are warning that an already explosive situation in the United States is about to get a whole lot worse, as a new law put forth by President Obama is said capable of seeing up to 500,000 American citizens jailed for the crime of opposing their government. Sparking the concern of Russian diplomats over the growing totalitarian bent of the Obama government is the planned reintroduction of what these reports call one of the most draconian laws ever introduced in a free society, that is titled the Violent Radicalization and Homegrown Terrorism Prevention Act. Folks, we said it was coming. We told you people forever it was coming, and you didn't believe us. And now it's here. And Obama has stated on record, I will jail Americans. If you'll go and look at my video entitled FEMA Concentration Camps, it will show you evidence that the government are out to arrest people, groups of people, such as 9/11 truthers, people that support Ron Paul, Christians, members of Tea Parties, gun owners, etc. These groups are considered the enemy of Washington. The FEMA concentration camps are up and running, and according to Obama's own words, he will jail Americans that are against him. First introduced in the U.S. Congress in 2007 by Democratic Representative Jane Harman, this new law passed the U.S. House of Representatives by a secretive voice vote, but failed to pass the U.S. Senate, after which it was believed dead until this past week, when it was embraced by Obama, who became the first American president to name his own citizens as a threat to his nation's security. America, you are now the enemy of the government. Wild, ain't it? Here it is. Bombshell tonight. And I think ain't that what Nancy Grace would say? Bombshell tonight. In what is called the National Security Strategy document that is required of U.S. presidents by their Congress, that embraces the dictatorial ideals of the Violent Radicalization and Homegrown Terrorism Prevention Act, Obama has ordered his federal police and intelligence forces to begin targeting Americans opposed to him and his radical socialist policies. Obama's top counterterrorism advisor, John Brennan, and speaking to reporters about this new strategy, says it makes the problem of homegrown terrorists a top priority because an increasing number of individuals in the U.S. have become captivated by extremist ideology or causes. So, here's the thing. People like Glenn Beck make FEMA concentration camps look like a made-up conspiracy. Beck says there's no such thing as concentration camps in America. What about Guantanamo Bay? Guantanamo Bay is a detainment facility of the United States located in Cuba. The facility is operated by Joint Task Force Guantanamo of the United States government since 2002. Guantanamo Bay is a prison camp set up by the United States government to hold terrorists. Just like Guantanamo Bay, there are many prison camps set up here in America on army bases to hold terrorists. Many army bases right now hold members of Al-Qaeda. But that is not what they were built for. They were actually built to hold the American people in. These are FEMA prison camps. It's not a conspiracy. Glenn Beck wants you to think it's a conspiracy. Because who does he work for? The New World Order. Inside guy. The Times of London is further reporting that Obama's new national security strategy officially ends America's war on terror and what they call a sweeping repudiation of the Bush doctrine of preemptive military strikes. And as Obama begins refocusing his forces from fighting America's foreign enemies to those opposed to him in his own country, it is important to remember the warning about this new law given by a former CIA official who had previously warned of the Bush-Cheney plan to attack Iran with nuclear weapons, and who said the mainstream media has made no effort to inform the public of the impending Violent Radicalization and Homegrown Terrorism Prevention Act. The act, which was sponsored by Congresswoman Jane Harman of California, was passed in the House by an overwhelming 405-6 vote on October 24th, and now is awaiting approval by the Senate Homeland Security Committee, which is headed by Senator Joseph Lieberman of Connecticut. Harman's bill contends that the United States will soon have to deal with homegrown terrorists, and that something must be done to anticipate and neutralize the problem. The act deals with the issue through the creation of a congressional commission that will be empowered to hold hearings, conduct investigations, and designate various groups as homegrown terrorists. The commission will be tasked to propose new legislation that will enable the government to take punitive action against both the groups and the individuals who are affiliated with them. Like Joe McCarthy and the HUAC in the past, the commission will travel around the United States and hold hearings to find the terrorists and root them out. Unlike inquiries in the past where the activity was carried out collectively, the Act establishment, the Violent Radicalization and Homegrown Terrorism Prevention Commission, will empower all the members of the Commission to arrange hearings, obtain testimony, and even to administer oaths to witnesses, meaning that multiple hearings could be running simultaneously in various parts of the country. The 10 Commission members will be selected for their expertise, though most will be appointed by Congress itself and will reflect the usual political interests. They will be paid for their duties at the senior executive pay scale level and will have staff and consultants to assist them. Harman's bill does not spell out terrorist behavior and leaves it up to the Commission itself to identify what is terrorism and what isn't. Language inserted in the Act does partially define homegrown terrorism as planning or threatening to use force to promote a political objective, meaning that just thinking about doing something could be enough to merit the terrorist label. The Act also describes violent radicalization as the promotion of an extremist belief system without attempting to define extremist. As an example of those Americans Obama will be targeting, Giraldi further writes that the Simon whatever that says Center, and testifying before the U.S. Congress in support of this new law, swore that an organization called Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth was an example of a homegrown terrorist organization, leading one Russian diplomat in this report to state, if 1,200 of America's top architectural and engineering professionals are deemed terrorists simply because they question their government propaganda, then truly no one is safe in the United States anymore. So in other words, you believe 9/11 was an inside job, you're going to be thrown in jail. It'll be against the law to believe it. Wow. As another example of how dictatorial the Obama regime has become, and as the Gulf of Mexico oil debacle has now become the worst ecological disaster our world has ever seen, the White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs this past week slammed American reporters for asking too many questions about BP, leading one to ask that if the Obama's regime can't be asked about the disaster, what can they be asked about? In other words, I'm telling you, just like 9/11, don't you be asking them questions. People's asking questions about the oil spill. Obama says, don't you be asking questions. In other words, they may throw you in jail for asking questions about the oil spill. Why? Because they set it up. The oil spill was a setup in order to pass Obama's carbon tax, and we got to clean the world up, and we got to save the Mother Earth, and we got to pass all these taxes. It's the old Save the Planet scheme. They've been doing it for years. And Obama and them BP set the whole thing up with the oil to come out. Trust me, it's all set up by the New World Order and the government. I know that for a fact. The answer is apparently none, as Obama himself just this past week in announcing the signing of a new law called the Press Freedom Act refused to answer any reporters' questions and abruptly left them standing in stupefaction over the irony and ordeal that shows how far America has fallen. Another irony apparently lost upon the American people is that President Obama, who has been dubbed the great communicator, now holds the dubious distinction of having held less press conferences than any American president in modern history. And if yesterday's press conference, his first in nearly a year, was an example, one can see why, as incredulous press corps was left astounded that Obama had no knowledge of the... Folks, can't go to 11 minutes on her. YouTube has a time requirement, almost out of time. It's just a little bit left in the article. Like I said, go down to my description, click the link. You can read the entire article yourself. Like I said, the government's come to take over. You're fixing to go into FEMA camps, bottom line.